One of Pharloom's most peculiar beings lies deep in abandoned Weave Nest Atla, hidden behind ruin and rust. A child born from the Weaver's genius, but forever trapped in her iron cage. Mystery shrouds Ava. She was a forlorn hope, a terrible failure, but possessed of immense potential over the very essence of life and soul in the Hollow Knight universe. So who or what exactly is Ava? What's her tale and what's her greater role in Pharloom's future? Let's dive in. Long ago, Grandmother Silk arrived in Pharloom and used her power as a pale being to elevate local Pharlids beyond their base nature, transforming them into the race of weavers. Hollow Knight's intelligent and ruthless spider kind. But as time passed and the first children learned the whole truth of their birth, many weavers concluded that the Grand Silk wasn't a kind mother, but rather an oppressive monarch who enslaved the weavers' minds to servitude and worship. A weaver rebellion caught flame and spread throughout Pharloom. But the first children quickly learned overthrowing a god isn't so simple a task. Thus sprang the many weave nests, carved through rock and web in remote locations, hidden from the pale monarch's vigilant eyes. To build, to hope, strength beyond our silk, strength enough to keep us free. This was the purpose of the weave nests, to create technologies and use the mystical properties of their own silk to weave runes to defeat Grandmother and preserve the weaver's freedom. But as Merglin's Needle-In echoes warn, no number of weavers could achieve this. A strength beyond their own was necessary. Weave Nest Atla, the largest and deepest of those remaining in Pharloom when Hornet arrives, was the last bastion of the weavers, where they worked in desperate frenzy to win their rebellion. The Weave Nest, through its location and perhaps even some warding runes fashioned by weavers, was hidden from Grandmother Silk. This low, her gaze escaped. Prepare, sisters, weave hope anew, that we might break free this accursed web, born of our naive foundation. It's been theorized that Grandmother Silk doesn't see in the traditional manner, but rather senses a bug's aura, her surroundings, and other inputs through the threads of silk extending across Pharloom. She feels their twitching, but also senses the silk and soul within others, especially her weaver children. A defense was prepared in Weave Nest Atla that severed this vision and allowed the weavers to spin hope in secret. One chamber, where Hornet can later find the Snare Setter artifact, a device used to imprison Grandmother Silk in one of the game's endings, was used as a lab where experimental weapons and devices were spun. A Needle-In memory lingers and reads, "Is it done? Our runes, our silk, to bind her tight, to keep us free." Many of the weaver's attempts were traps and weapons born of or fueled by runes. To weave runes is an ancient weaver technique. They're mystically charged by silk and soul to enact many functions. There, my mothers built their tools, all traps and bindings. Small things, but tests for larger forms. I still remember their thoughts as they worked, their desperation, and their hunger. Another hopeless attempt to wrest their freedom. All ended in failure, of course. But a thought of something far stranger and more powerful sprang into the minds of leading weavers, and so they created Ava. The weavers attempted to spin life completely from their silk and their soul. An artificial being had never been born, not even by the Pale Monarch, but necessity pushed them. Perhaps using their own reserves of silk, their own runes, they thought their child would be incorruptible, that it would share no connection to Grandmother Silk. Another thing to consider is that weavers are afflicted by a curse, as Ava tells us. My mothers shared the curse of their tribe. To conceive a child is a painful, near impossible task. And what is a child but hope? A wish for a better future and a desire to preserve oneself through generations. The weavers didn't know if they'd survive the conflict. It's only natural to think of inheritors to their work, and like any parent, they wanted their child to surpass them. Using an iron chamber as a protective shell, the weavers sewed countless runes within, and through magic of which we can only speculate, breathed life into the silk. What seems a cage is as much my shell as the form inside. I was born within this space. To leave would be my death. I am unique, you see, a life spun from rune and shell, sustained only by its cage. In the world of Pharloom, 3 foundational ideas are closely tied: soul, memory, and the silk that binds them. As the Materium tells us, silk is a thread spun from its creator's soul. It is soul manifest, and soul in Hollow Knight is life force, a bug's essence, a metaphysical battery, and much more beside. Though a bug wouldn't exist without soul, its memories give it individuality, character, and purpose. Memory lockets can be found throughout the kingdom, keepsakes of pilgrims that contain precious memories of past lives. The dream sequences that play before acquiring a silk heart, the webs on the edges of remembrances while using the Elegy of the Deep. The fact that the needle in silk stirs faded thoughts from long ago all connect silk to memory. And so it is that Ava's powers derive from these 3 ideas. Ava doesn't see as normal bugs do. In conversation, she tells Hornet that she senses the nature of other bugs by perceiving their soul's imprint, what Hornet and the Weavers call a crest. Perhaps this is similar to the theorized sight of Grandmother Silk. Through clarity, Ava can expand on the nature of Hornet. This skill illustrates her ties to memory. Only by upgrading crests through memory lockets can Hornet expand her nature, and the use of lockets allows Ava to enhance the Princess of Hallownest. Ava's most incredible trait is her ability to generate a limitless supply of silk, a quality we'll speak on soon. But this would suggest Ava possesses depths of soul found in no other creature. So with such a masterful creation, why did the Weavers abandon Ava? Throughout the lore, we hear sentiments of hatred, disgust, and regret for Ava from her Weaver mothers. She's crowned the despised child because of a flaw. Ava's form is so fragile that to leave her iron cocoon would soon end her life. The Weavers dreamed for a weapon. What they received couldn't harm Grandmother Silk. Not only this, but Ava, as a being spun from Weaver silk rather than the monarch's own, was different enough from the Weavers that they shunned her. My thoughts may mimic a Weaver's, but my senses are my own. Over time, that difference brought only distance between us. Many Weavers fled Pharloom during their rebellion against Mother Silk, and those that remained secured victory without Ava. Few remembered her. Those that did likely felt only contempt for their failed experiment, and so, like Frankenstein's monster, Ava was made to languish alone, trapped within her fortress and her prison. Hide her deep, the despised child, our shame shown in shell of iron. She is a wish cast vain, divinity mimicked in form too frail. Ages pass. Pharloom sees a monarch slumber and a citadel rise, its religion dominating the minds and lives of the kingdom's bugs. Hidden in a derelict weave nest, the door of which will open only to the extinct weavers. Ava has eternity to ruminate. Her needle-in offers insight into her personality and her desire to experience the vast universe beyond her shell. Our senses limits, what worlds beyond? This life confined, this shell of iron, this form so fragile, our silken sight. She mentions later, after Hornet discovers her, that Ava thought many times of stepping out of the iron and ending her life. A pitiful creature. Her circumstance mirrors another silk-spun being in Pharloom, the artificial child of Grandmother Silk. And actually, if we pull up Ava's chamber and the chamber Phantom was housed in during this silk memory, we see that their designs are nearly identical. It would seem Phantom was also a flawed attempt, but chose to leave and die on their terms rather than remain a prisoner. In any event, Ava waits countless years until Hornet, descendant of Weavers, is brought to Pharloom. After she acquires her ancestor's ability to strum the needle in, Hornet can unseal the gates to the kingdom's ruined weave nests. In the blocked chamber of Weave Nest Atla, she first approaches Ava. Instantly, Ava can sense Hornet's weaver nature, but remarks that the Princess of Hallownest is something else. The two are similar in that they are children of weavers, but not quite among them. Hornet's malleable nature, her ability to absorb crests and adapt her shell to their memory imprints, surprises Ava, who offers her services more so out of curiosity than anything else. She becomes a companion of sort to Hornet and assists her in the journey across Pharloom. Ava's senses and abilities tie her closely to those intangible sentiments: memory, essence, soul. The strength of this connection is illustrated in Ava's enemies. Two unique interactions with Ava are possible if Hornet approaches weighed down by an external life force. The first is while Hornet carries the Twisted Bud parasite, embedded within her shell by Greyroot after completing the rite of rebirth. The Twisted Bud curses Hornet, alters the very nature of her crest, which we see while afflicted. Hornet can no longer generate enough silk to bind, and viney tendrils cover the HUD. The crest reads, "My shell has become host to a cruel parasite. Though my natural strength keeps it from consuming me entirely, I'm much weakened by its presence." This parasite feeds on soul and demonstrates a hunger insatiable enough to consume a pale being in Grandmother Silk, which we see in the Twisted Child ending. Through her unique sight, Ava senses the parasite within Hornet and how it's twisted her crest. She erects a rune barrier to protect herself and says this: "Stay back, twisted leech. Even lodged within another shell, your ravenous nature shines clear. You shall not defile this chamber, nor claim my soul. Be gone." The second interaction, similar to the first, occurs if Hornet approaches, overdosed on plasmium, to the point where the substance transforms her masks and her crest. Plasmium, known also as lifeblood, is a bizarre thing. Though it appears to boost vitality in the short term, long periods or high doses of exposure transform bugs in body and soul. Even the environment is mutated to propagate this virulent substance, as we see in its takeover of the wormways in Act 3. Again, Ava spins shielding runes and says, "Come no closer. I sense the forbidden blood coursing through you, that which grows and reshapes the world in its own vulgar image. Whether it was imbibed willingly or not, none shall be allowed into this chamber while so afflicted. Be gone." Both these substances defile the nature of soul. They distort the crests, the essence, the memories of bugs they have consumed. As a being spun entirely of silk and soul, Ava would be such a prize that all Pharloom might be endangered were they to consume her. And here too, we also see her strength, as there are few things in Pharloom that Hornet can't overcome, either through strength or skill. But even to her, Ava's runes are impenetrable. An interesting side note, this shield has a shape and structure akin to the warming and warding beacons found near the Weave Nest in Mount Fae. Perhaps weavers of old shared Ava's power. If Hornet incorporates every available crest within her and unlocks their full potential through the memory lockets of Pharloom's bugs, then Ava confesses her desire. Long ago, Ava thought to leave her iron and entwine herself with a bug that she describes as unbound. Gathering the crests demonstrates the malleability of Hornet's nature, her very soul, and proves to Ava that she is indeed a thing unbound. Lady, you are a multitude within a single shell, a being truly unbound. To aid your growth has proved a grand task, even for one as limited as me. As my last act, permit me to ask a final, selfish request, only to have my own soul, my own memories bound within your shell, as you have done with those others throughout these lands. I would not define as a crest within you, but my small strength may still grant a final boon. To accept breaks Ava free from her fate and liberates her from her eternal prison, but it comes at great cost. As Hornet mentions, if Ava binds, she loses her individuality and herself, as Hornet's crest would dominate. But Ava's essence still lingers within the Princess of Hallownest as the Silksong. Described as Ava's soul and strength, essence of a being merged within, this ability passively regenerates Hornet's silk stores as she rests on a bench. The Silksong gives us insight into how exceptionally powerful Ava is. We must remember that silk, the fine thread drawn from its creator's soul, is a versatile, mystical substance. It heals wounds, it bolsters vitality, extends life, and can weave runes. The midwife of Deep Nest mentions that Weaver's silk looms created advanced technologies and spells. Ava is a limitless source of silk, which suggests an infinite well of soul resides within her. This is on par with pale beings such as Grandmother Silk and the Pale King, whose combined charm, the King's Soul, is also constant font of soul. Now, as we've discussed, Ava is described as an attempt at divinity. Though the Weavers failed, the Silksong shows us just how close Ava came to a higher being. For a creature born of iron and rune, she's a marvel and illustrates the Weaver's silken potential. Bound to Hornet, the Ava we know is lost, but not entirely gone. Her essence is entwined with Hornet's own. Hey guys, Editing Eric here, and I found 3 more interesting lore bits about Ava on my second time through the video assets that I absolutely had to include before publishing, so I hope you enjoy, and sorry that I almost missed them. The first is that it's worth mentioning Ava hums a tune while she sits within her chamber. We know that song is a powerful force in Pharloom. The Weavers used it to defeat Mother Silk and to dominate lesser bugs. Ava's sad melody could be a small nod to the Weaver nature she shares with her mothers. Second, when Hornet binds Ava and ultimately frees her, we catch a glimpse of her iron cage's interior. The structure is surprisingly reminiscent of the Weaver shrines, the material that remains after Hornet binds the memory dwelling within. So whatever skill or magic is used in preserving their spirits long into the future, the Weavers use such arts to maintain Ava as well. Finally, we mentioned how close Ava was to Pale Being or Higher Being, a mimicry of godlike nature. Well, if we take a closer look at the halo surrounding Hornet while using Ava's Silksong ability, it looks quite like the pointed halo above Grandmother Silk, further solidifying Ava's semi-divine status. Thanks so much for watching this video on the lore of Ava from Hollow Knight Silksong. Let me know what you think of this unique creature, as well as what other characters or stories from Silksong you'd like to learn more about in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel where content is uploaded frequently. I want to take a moment to thank all of my patrons over on Patreon. Their support means the world to me and helps the channel continue to improve. If you'd like to become a lore luminary for access to me, written scripts, and early video drops, head to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.